Welcome to the Change Revolution podcast with your host, Phil Cooke.
I love great causes, and there's some great ones out there. I mean, poverty and digging water wells and feeding the hungry and human trafficking and sex slavery and feeding children and just all kind of things. There's some great causes out there. Well, I want to launch a new cause, and it's people who interrupt. I want to stop people from interrupting. You know the person I'm talking about. You know the person that every time you're in the middle of a conversation, they pop in and completely ignore what you're doing. I get a particularly interesting kick out of it when I'm at a conference. And after I speak on the stage, I'll go down and I'll talk with people and I'm having a great time. And yet there's always that person that will walk up and no matter what I'm doing or what I'm saying or who I'm saying it with, they just walk right up and interrupt. They just jump right into the conversation as if, I should drop everything and pay attention to what they have to say. The truth is, interrupters destroy great ideas. They destroy great ideas. Now, here's the thing. Not everybody that interrupts is a bad person. I mean, there's some jerks out there. There's no question about it. But what I find more often is people that, they just feel compelled to talk about whatever idea pops in their head at that moment. And you've seen these guys at meetings where you're sitting around discussing things and they just pop out and interrupt people. I was at a media conference the other day up in Montana. And it was really interesting because we used kind of a Socratic method of discussion where we all take turns. Nobody interrupts. In fact, you have to raise your hand, and not only do you don't just get recognized then, they actually write your name down, and they put your name in the queue, and you can throw in your idea, and it may be 5 minutes from then or 10 minutes from then. Who knows? And it was an interesting experience because it let people actually just really share what was in their heart and give their whole thought, and you had to think deeper and track with these multiple conversations. And it's not for everybody. It's not for every meeting. I still like free-flowing, creative, spontaneous meetings. However, I really draw the line in interrupting. I have huge issues with people that interrupt. And like I say, very often it's just people that they feel like whatever idea, what pops in their head at that moment is worth it, is everybody needs to hear. Well, number one, it's not, because the person you're interrupting has something important to say. I mean, let them talk. Interrupting people immediately transmits that you don't value anybody's time, you don't value other people's ideas, and you don't value their comments. So it's a negative thing right from the start. The other thing is, very often I find that serial interrupters are people that they spout that first thing, they don't give any thought to what they're saying. They haven't really thought about it. So the next time a great idea pops in your head, before you spew it out, sit back for a second, just think about it. Maybe it's not as great as you thought it was the first time you heard it. Serial interrupters can drive people crazy. Let's stop it. And we stop it. We stop it within ourselves. We stop it when we ask ourselves to hold back, let people talk, let people share, and let them get their good ideas. And I would encourage you to bring this up at a meeting before you start your next creative or marketing or organizational or leadership meeting or whatever. Just make a comment. You know what? I saw Phil Cooke's blog the other day, or I saw his podcast, and I read an interesting thing about interrupters. He talked about how they can completely spoil great ideas. And mention it to the crowd and say, let's take our time and let's not necessarily just pop out with the first thing that, spurts up inside our head. Let's think about it a little bit. And more than anything, allow people the chance to finish. Allow people to finish, because if we can stop interrupting, suddenly the free flow of ideas are going to boom on. Now, I say that with a caveat that there are obviously going to be insanely boring people out there that will drive you nuts, and you want to do nothing more than interrupt them. And there is a point where if it's just a one-on-one situation, and they're just taking this conversation and running with it or hijacking it, then I give you permission. Interrupt all you want. I mean, they're obviously, as most of the things I say on this podcast, there are obviously a time to do it and a time not to do it. There are rules and there are appropriate places. Ernest Hemingway said when he taught young writers, he said the first thing to do is learn all the rules. The second thing to do is throw them out the window. Know when to break the rules. And I say that about knowing when to interrupt. But I'll tell you what, be sensitive. Think about it. And before you do, really think about the impact it could have on the other person and the other people in the room.
Join us for more of this conversation at Phil's Change Revolution blog at philcooke.com. That's PHILCOOKE.com. And keep checking this podcast for more up-to-date dispatches from the front lines of media, faith, and culture.